Alright, so you're going to notice at the very top of this lesson there are two vocabulary terms that we are not ready to touch yet. Okay? Here is where we're going to get a little different. So this is why it's important to have a really good understanding of what it means to solve an equation and the steps that go into it. So far, as we've been solving equations, we have always turned out with exactly one answer. And that one answer was something like, we get an answer that says x equals 7, or x equals -5, or n equals 0. And what that told us was that if that was the one value, that if you were to plug it in for the variable, made your equation true. And that's where we've been asking many of you to be checking your answers. Use your calculator, plug that back in, see if it makes the equation true, yada, 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 yada. Okay? Starting tomorrow, we're going to add two other cases. We're going to add equations that have no solutions, which means no number you plug in will ever make the left and the right side equal to one another. And you will also add in an identity, which is the complete opposite. It means every number that you plug in will make the left and the right side equal to one another. Okay? We're not going to throw that at you yet today, but starting tomorrow, we're going to be exposed to pretty much every type of an equation that you can be solving. Alright? Today we're going to focus on equations that still have one solution. We're going to talk about the steps that we need to be able to solve these, but then we're also going to be talking about how to make sure that we check our answers with these as well. So, going through our step-by-step process that we have on the sheets that I gave you. What's step number 1 talk about for steps for solving linear equations? Simplify each side of the equation. So that's where we always need to begin. So, if I look at example 1a, do we have anything on the left-hand side that can be simplified? No. Do we have anything on the right-hand side that can be simplified? No. So step number 1 has already been done for us. There's no simplifying that can happen anymore in this problem. Okay? Now, the second step is one that we haven't had to worry about yet, because our variables have always been on one side, except now today they're not. So what does step number 2 tell us? Yeah, they're all the variables onto one side. I don't care what side. I don't care if you want to move all the variables to the left because that's what you're comfortable with, or if you want to move all the variables to the right because that makes more sense to you. Whatever works, works. I'll be honest, I don't have a set, I'm always going to move it to this side. I don't always move it to the left, I don't always move it to the right. It's going to depend on what the equation looks like. Okay? Now, in this particular problem, I'll be honest, knowing what I know, I don't care where I move it. It's going to work either way fairly quickly. Okay? So Miles, do you want to move the 5n to the right, or do you want to move the 9n to the left?
I'll move the 5n.
Alright, let's move the 5n. Now, is that a positive 5n or a negative 5n on the left?
Positive.
It's a positive. So if we're going to move it to the other side, we need to what?
Subtract.
We're going to need to subtract it. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5n from here, which then means that over here I need to also subtract 5n. Now, if I subtract 5n from the left-hand side, what does that leave me with? Leaves us with a -7. Not just 7, but a -7. Because remember, we always pay attention to the sign that is in front of the number. Okay? And on the right-hand side, now we've actually got some like terms that we can combine. We're going to begin by taking 9n and subtracting 5n. Those two are like terms. What's that going to give me? It's going to give me 4n. And then I still have my plus 21 over here that I haven't gotten rid of. Now, here's the nice part about it. If you simplified, which is what we should always try to do first, once you get the variables onto one side, now, ladies and gentlemen, you're just back to solving a two-step equation over and over and over and over again. So what's the next step that we need to do to solve this equation? We need to subtract 21. We need to get rid of anything that's being added or subtracted with the variable. Okay? So this is being added. We undo addition with subtraction. So we're going to subtract 21 from both sides. When we subtract 21 from both sides, negative 7 minus 21 is going to give us negative 28. And on the other side, my plus 21 minus 21 are going to cancel each other out, and I'm left with 4n. Okay, now I still need to get rid of multiplication. How do I get rid of multiplication? With division. So what I'm going to need to do is divide this side by 4. Well, if I'm dividing the right side by 4, then I must divide the left side by 4 as well. So now over here, when I take negative 28 and divide by 4, that leaves me with negative 7. And on the other side, 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I have 1n. Now, what I don't want to get lost in this is how to check your answer. Now, it used to be the variables were on one side. So I would just grab my calculator, I'd type it in, and it would spit out and tell me what the other side should be. Now I have variables on both sides. So if I'm going to check my answer, which I encourage you to do, you need to make sure that you're plugging variable of this number in on both sides of the equation. So, my work for looking on for checking this, we're going to take 5 times negative 7 and then subtract 7. And on the other side, we're going to take 9 times negative 7 and then we're going to add 21. Okay? Now, again, your calculator would do this all for you, but let's actually show it. What are we doing first here? I got to do my multiplication. So 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. And if I take negative 35 and then subtract 7, what's that give us? It gives us a negative 42. Now, on the other side, what are we doing first over here? We're multiplying 9 times negative 7. 9 times negative 7 is negative 63. Then I'm taking negative 63 and I'm adding 21, which gives me negative 42. So, my left side turns out to be negative 42. My right side turns out to be negative 42. That's good, because that's what we expect to have happen. We said that if you plug the number in to the left side and the right side, it should make those two sides of the equation equal to one another. Again, if I were to plug in any other number, my left side might turn out to be negative 7, my right side might turn out to be 21. That's not what I want. I need the value on the left and the value on the right to turn out to be the exact same number. That is only going to happen when n is equal to a negative 7. Alright, you guys go ahead and work through B, which is somewhat similar to A, so go ahead and work through that, see what you can come up with. That's all I want you to do is example B, please.